Brno. We're going this way.
Yeah.
I asked him what's up with the city's name.
Brno.
Why would you call it Brno?
Why not?
Why is it like Burino or something, you know?
Like burrito?
Burrito, yeah. It's not a burrito.
Hi.
There you go to Ivan Buchta.
Yeah.
Okay, please sit and wait on me. I don't want to.
Yeah.
Hello, Ivan.
Hey.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, that's
Nice to meet you.
Oh, sorry, we're late.
So let's go upstairs.
Hello, my name is Ivan Buchta and I'm creative director of ARMA Reforger and ARMA 4 here at Bohemia Interactive. We are in the Brno office. This is one of our Czech offices along with Prague, which houses both the development studios and our back office headquarters. We have another Czech studio in Mníšek pod Brdy, just south of Prague, which was the traditional and first office, where we also have our mocap hall and our little T-72 tank parked and ready for action. We also have studios in Amsterdam and in Pattaya, Thailand. Pattaya studio is focused on supplying art and QA services. In Amsterdam, folks have been recently working on unannounced project on their own. Before that, they were instrumental in bringing ARMA Reforger to publishing. Bohemia Interactive was founded in 1999 by Marek Rosa, one of the famous Spaniel brothers who came up with the real virtuality engine, which has been powering ARMA since Operation Flashpoint up until ARMA 3 or now. Together with Slavomír Pavlíček, another famous personality here in game dev, they founded the studio. Before Flashpoint was released, they produced a little point-and-click adventure about Father Frost. Flashpoint was released in 2001, defining its own genre of open-world tactical military game with a huge focus on authenticity. Besides ARMA series, currently develop on our new proprietary technology. Companies behind the titles like Daisy, originally ARMA 2 modification created by Dean Hall. I would say that Brno is thriving in terms of video games.
No, it's really like, why does it feel like there's this like really like relentless pressure for the Brno game scene to grow? Where does it come from?
I can only guess that it's maybe because of amount of people with academic background and education who turned rogue and started making video games back in those days. At some point it probably had enough of talent and was probably a bit cheaper than Prague. It's not truth anymore, but this tradition of game development dates fairly back to the past, and it's definitely easier to maintain something which is already existing. We definitely have a tradition to build upon, but it's a big city, a lot of people, a lot of resources you can come with, so it's becoming equally suitable for running a studio as, for example, Prague or Vienna. And also amount of pubs per capita is definitely helping the creative process.
I think hopefully somebody does a study on that. But then Mongolia would be a gaming hotspot, because I think Ulaanbaatar has the highest number of pubs per capita.
That's pretty interesting.
Maybe that's the next big gaming destination.
So, capital of world game development industry. I wouldn't mind, fresh air. I see it as a game which offers some opportunities. It offers a big challenge, but if you invest a lot of time, it can return in some very special, very unique experience. And this is what we've seen in the game when we started playing and modifying Operation Flashpoint. So great platform for socializing, for experiencing cooperation like in no other environment, and these are the strong points we want to emphasize on and build on them further. some of the things which some of us perceive as intriguing or interesting to make, maybe even harming for the brand, for how people perceive it. So we also have to be mindful of the voice of our community. Not that we are doing entirely community-driven development. It's more like being mindful of any kind of like tools or ways to enjoy the game, and if and when our time and resources permit, show our community that we care, and not just by the words, but also by our deeds and actions. Definitely, it's still a big battle for players. You know, people are they get used to early access. So we have early access game. We have to move towards completion in certain pace. There's a lot more pressure also on us developers when it comes to marketing communication, and it's entirely fair. You know, we have a very invested community, and good communication with them and being open and honest, it's paramount. But we've always tried to be open and honest about what we are doing. But now it's also about the quality of message, also about the quality of this content we can bring to people. People are, let's say, more interested in the process of creating the game itself. The general understanding of game dev by the public has increased. So you know, we are under magnifying scope, so to speak. So I can't just enjoy the luxury of making just a game and not caring about anything else. It's also about what we offer to the people. So you know, you either deliver the feature and that's it, and that's what we are focused on. But it's also good to deliver story behind it, or until you have it, at least like keep people interested. Because particularly with a product which is oriented on multiplayer and comes with player counts, and you really want to achieve a healthy environment with lots of players, providing fun for more players, because there's nothing worse for a game like this than empty servers. So for us, it will be a battle for the users, and also not just for users, for the numbers, but I've always seen my mission as the one to deliver people the great experience, the satisfaction, the happiness, the content that so I bought a game for €30 and I'm having fun with it. Thank you, Bohemia Interactive. On a personal level, especially here in Czech Republic, it was a huge game changer, and of course there are Ukrainian colleagues, their families. There are Russian colleagues as well. We have just few, but there's one Russian girl who has become super active in helping the Ukrainians, because that's the only human standpoint which is acceptable once you start living in the West and you're outside of just being fed to propaganda. Of course, people might question like if it's all right to make video games about war. I think it's even more needed than before in some way. Like we have history of cooperating with International Committee of the Red Cross, which is organization behind the international humanitarian law. And I personally greatly respect the attitude of a person who contacted us, who was in touch with us, providing consultations. And there's a big sense in what this organization has been doing. Like some employees state that it's not perfect. We often have to make stupid compromises, but it's better than nothing. And it even strengthens my incentive to promote international humanitarian law or laws of armed conflict in our games. So ARMA is known for going deep and for going just behind just the scope of shooter, just by killing.
Yeah.
ARMA Reforger comes with the concept of completing combat with logistics and communication. We are now working on the features behind first aid on the battlefield, clearance, and treating wounded and unarmed. And I hope I'll be able to go further, because I keep saying that for us it's not a barrier. It's a very challenging field where we can deliver a lot of interesting gameplay, which can even raise awareness of some topics. So, for example, if people would know that it's illegal to shoot at people who are not armed, or if there's a rule dictating that human suffering should be mitigated, that even prisoners of war should be treated with some dignity. You know, like those things which like often are sadly forgotten in the heat of battle. Like reminding people, these are some rules. These are some things which has to be maintained for us to stay human. So, if by completing ARMA in this regard, I would be able to raise awareness, and I would be very happy. In the beginning, like a year ago, it felt super weird to suddenly working on the military game featuring practically very similar equipment to what you see in Ukraine nowadays. Although our game is set in the history in the Cold War gone hot, but it didn't really feel good. But on the other hand, like what can you do? You have to carry on. You can't just cancel the project because of this, because there are so many people relying on it. And instead of panicking and doing something stupid, we calmed down, arranged some help we could muster as a company, collecting some money, sending them in the right direction, doing some stuff on the personal level. Also, this effort or focus I've mentioned, bringing the loss of armed conflict into Reforger, became even more important for us. Sometimes it's difficult, but I'm proud to say that our direction in this regard is set. It seemed to me that the world is, just suddenly turning to the old ways. I was born in 1979, so I can remember a tiny little bit of the Cold War, 1980s. And in a way, it felt like these times are returning back. So that's why we jumped onto the topic of this conflict between Warsaw Pact and NATO, this culmination of the tension in the bipolar world, and looks like it's more like a more contemporary topic than we even expected.
So we are on our way to Prague. Fatty product.
This makes me very happy that the invasion has made it to Czechia. We have genuine Finnish chocolate available at Tesco.
So it's 9 a.m. No, it's later, right? past.
It is not 9 a.m. It's 10 p.m.
Our security guard. Hi there.
Hi.
I'm
Maria.
Yara.
Hi.
Yara.
Nice time.
Nice to meet you.
The craftsmen who were working on it there spent, 6 months, 4 months, and from early morning to late night, every day, so it was a lot of work. And there is also a little Easter egg in the middle. If you know Game of Life, so those are some patterns from Game of Life. Here's our Yes. So sorry for the little mess.
No, it's cool. It's really cool. Nicer than my home office.
I'm Marek Rosa, founder of King Software House and also GoodAI. In King Software House, we develop Space Engineers and also our own in-house engine, VRage. And like what is unique about this engine is that everything is destructible, dynamic. There are super large worlds, voxels, and this is what we use in Space Engineers. You know, a game where people can build spaceships and like do really hardcore engineering. And then in GoodAI, or the mission of GoodAI was to develop general AI.
Can you tell a little bit about your background? Like, how did you end up founding Keen?
So I was programmer from a childhood and was developing my own engine and game, which later evolved into our first game, Minor Wars, and also the first version of the VRage engine. And so I came from the programming background, but when I was starting, I was doing basically everything on Minor Wars myself in the early days. So like I was doing art and design and also PR and sound design. I didn't do only music. That's what I outsourced.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we started to work on Space Engineers, which was the original idea. I just was keeping it for later because it was much more ambitious. You know, that like you build grids and ships and cars and everything from grids like Lego Technic, and you know it should work in real time. You know, it should break in real time and so on. So we started to work on this. I think this was 2013, and after 7 months we released the game on early access. And we didn't want to wait longer because we needed the money, but also we thought that the MVP is there. Like it doesn't need basically anything else. Like the core concept, which was you can build something, you can fly with it, you can break it, destroy it, was there. So we released it, and it was basically instant success. You know, that people just loved the idea. They started to build, and the Steam Workshop started to grow, and so we started to slowly grow our team. And but it wasn't a big team for a long time, and we released the game from early access in 2019. Since then, we are supporting the game, which means that every couple months we release a free update with some paid DLC, and this works. We also release Xbox version, and in a few months we'll be releasing PlayStation version of Space Engineers. And about 2 years ago or so, we started to work on the new version or new generation of the engine, VRage 3 this time, which should, we're basically completely redesigning the core of the engine, so it should be data-oriented and like better at scaling to multi-core computers, like saturating them much better, because we really need a lot of computation. And we also considered using, third-party engines like Unreal or Unity for our future. But we still, the calculations basically looks like that for us it's better to have our own engine, and we have more control, even though of course like we need to redo some of the things that those engines already have. But on the other side, some of the engines, they don't have features that our game requires, and it would be just either stop for us, or we would spend so much time by changing those engines that it's pain.
And where did GoodAI come from?
So I started it in 2014, and with the money that I was making on games, and it was my even earlier vision, because I always thought that we need to create general AI, robots, automate intelligence, and because I always thought that there is a scarcity of intelligence, on this planet, that we have only 7 or 8 billion people, and that's it. But I think to really create some huge futuristic civilization, I think you need like trillions of intelligent beings doing things and being even smarter than people. So this was always my vision, my dream. So we started, in the beginning, we were trying to find out or invent architecture that can scale up to AGI. So for a few years we were working on trying to invent this architecture, and 2 or 3 years ago it started to look like that large language models like GPT could be a scalable way how to get to AGI, because the systems, were already showing some signs of generality and ability to learn in context and so on. And at the same time, actually, I also started to think about that in GoodAI we should start working on some project, some commercial project that will also kind of ground us, and so it will not be just academic research, but something practical. And these two things, this kind of like a commercial application and the scientific research, if they are combined together, I thought that could be something useful that can move us to AGI faster, sooner, and with some kind of like grounding in the real world. So we started to work on AI game, and the original vision was really simple. It was like, let's make a game where the game mechanic is about teaching the agents and interacting with some intelligent agents. But in the beginning, it was really simple. So, for example, you had to teach agents how to play football, and the technology that we used was some kind of behavioral cloning. So you have to show them how to play football and that they have to understand. But it actually wasn't fun. It's like you need to repeat something 100 times. They still make some mistake and so on. So we were still trying to find the secret or something magical that will really make the game interesting. And at the time, as I said, the large language model started to look like a possible solution. So basically what we did is that we treat the large language model as some kind of model of the world that's happening in the text, and it generates the next word. So basically you can use it to generate what an agent would do. And so our agents in our games, after many iterations of development, they can observe in the environment, they can act in the environment, they can talk to other agents, they have their personalities. Their personalities can develop because they have long-term memory, so they actually remember the conversations and what they said, and the personality could develop. And there is a lot of emergent things happening in the game. That's the interesting thing. So I really hope this can be some kind of revolution in how we do NPCs in games. I think the game industry in the Czech Republic was always quite big or successful. There are many successful games. What is the difference between Czech developers and the rest of the world is for some reason we kind of like strive to develop games that are touching the realism, or there is ARMA, which is like a simulator of war, or Factorio again, which is something like something real, and of course Space Engineers, which is like also a game where actually it's even one of our mottos is that the reality is the best game designer. So which is not always true, but we use it as some kind of guiding principle.
It's a good starting point.
One of my theories that I have is that maybe it's influence from the ARMA and Bohemia. That they started it 20 years ago with Flashpoint game, and then later ARMA, and maybe somehow it influenced us all in some way. That's the theory that I would say.
Okay, cool.
I'm quite happy actually that we completely avoided, that thing, because there were always some people who were trying to like get me into crypto because Space Engineers, would be great with crypto and everything. But I'm so happy that we didn't do it. I think Web3 and crypto could be good, but 99% of it, I think, was just scam or pure bullshit in my opinion. So I think in theory those things maybe will be useful in some AI society in the future, because we'll need some decentralized things, maybe. But I think those things were just overpriced, and overvalued. Even like some stupid project had values or in like hundreds of millions of dollars. It just doesn't make any sense, right?
There's some really interesting philosophies and there's some really interesting tech, but it's covered in shit. And we need to get
and I
rid
also
of that.
didn't like the mentality of people getting in, because it was just like, let's make quick money.
Exactly. It's all grifters and whatnot. So.
That was just so weird, the whole thing.
Can you talk a little bit more about kind of like how do you see it affecting the whole industry in the long term?
Yeah. So I think content creation is like the easy answer, basically. I think we just need better tools, because right now, even us, we try to use Stable Diffusion or similar things for what we do, but they can only help like with some very little things. For example, I don't know, concept artist doesn't need to, or concept artists can use a Stable Diffusion or similar system to generate like many variations of some, let's say, character. Then we pick the character and then he can continue with it. So it saves some time, but it's not a game changer, I would say. But I think the better tools will come, and they will be better integrated into existing tools, or maybe there will be completely new tools like built around AI, and not like trying to put AI into Blender or something else. So I think artists will use these AI tools to augment their skills. So many of the, let's say, laborious things that they were used to do right now, they will not have to do it, and basically they will not be able to do it because it will be extremely inefficient. The machine will do it much faster. But I'm interested more in actually things that others don't see, or others don't want to touch. And one of those is these NPCs. I'm seeing like many companies are trying to add conversation AI to their games, but I think that's not enough. So like when you have just some, NPC and you can just talk to it about some topic, but that's it. The NPC doesn't have impact on the game world. I think it's not really interesting. So these NPCs, that's much more interesting for me. And the last kind of category of AI in games, I think, is just the whole game production. So imagine instead of programming the game, you would be talking with some kind of AI-powered engine, and the AI would be writing the code for you. It would be able to integrate it together. That's one step. I think that's the first step that needs to be done. And the second step would be that you really have some neural network, some model, and you will talk to it, explain what kind of game you want. You will say that I want something like Grand Theft Auto, but in prehistoric times. But there must be Donald Trump, for example. And this model would generate the frames, 30 or 60 frames per second for you based on this game. It would be able to store the state of the game, emulate or simulate the game world with physics and like photorealistic graphics and also these NPCs. And it would emulate only things or parts of the world that are relevant for you as an observer. So this would be the next step, but I think it's much more computationally expensive than the first step. I'm not sure if people will be developing games in the future, and by future I mean 5 or 10 years. And so I think this will have huge impact on game development. The end game for me is basically to have simulations that are like simulating the whole universe, but in AI. So it could be computationally efficient because it will simulate only what you can actually observe. And it will be hyper-realistic. You will be able to live in any time, any kind of stories. They will happen for you. It will be maximizing your engagement and entertainment. And so I think this is the end game. We are talking about climate change, for decades, and almost nothing is changing or nothing is happening. And I know that there are some, in EU, some regulations and this or that, and I'm not expert on them. I don't know the statistics. I cannot reason about it, but just from outside, it looks to me like basically nothing is changing. And so I think the solution to climate change will be better technology, to be honest. Instead of trying to decrease the consumption of energy or materials that we are using as a society and basically going to some kind of medieval technology, I think it's much better to work hard on a better technology that can give us sustainable energy and also much more energy, because the consumption of energy of people today compared to people 200 years, it's 100 times more or even more.
Probably more.
And I actually believe, and maybe this will be controversial, that it should be even more. I think we should be spending 1,000 times more of energy than our ancestors. And I'm not saying that we need to destroy the environment. I think we need to learn to do it in a sustainable way. Maybe get the energy from sun or from these thermonuclear reactions and so on, or maybe get the materials from space. But I think that's the solution. So I don't think politically it will work to reduce the consumption. So we need to use science, technology to find ways how to get more sustainable energy, cheaper energy, and more energy. And I don't think game industry, is the tool to solve this. And on the other side, I think maybe we'll just increase the consumption of energy, right? Because of the data centers and people buying GPUs and computers and so on. But I think it's just natural progression. I just hope we will get this technology before the climate change will completely collapse. And but that's what I can only hope.
Nice.
Czechia has the highest number of porn actors per capita.
Fact. Why? What? Source?